And Kevin Murphy joins me now on set. He is professor and chair of the History of Art Department at Vanderbilt University. Professor Murphy, thank you so much for being with us. You know, this terrible tragedy to the cathedral has happened during Holy Week. Can you give us an idea of the significance of the Notre Dame Cathedral to Catholics during this time specifically?
Well, anybody who's been to Paris at Easter knows that Notre Dame is just thronged with tourists all times of the year, but especially at Easter, where it becomes such an important place to gather and to embark on pilgrimage and so on. So its significance to the church cannot be underplayed. It's thought of as the Cathedral of Paris, but also the Cathedral of France. And beyond that, it really has an international significance.
And now is the moment when everyone must sort of take stock and assess exactly what was lost and what still remains. I mean, sort of hopefully there seem to be some things that are still standing. Sadly, there are other things that seem to have perished. But if these rebuilding efforts do go forward, and it seems as if the city of Paris is intent on pursuing them, what will the reconstruction of Notre Dame look like? Because as Elaine alluded to earlier, and as we know, the cathedral has been rebuilt or, reconstructed throughout the centuries in various ways. And the Notre Dame that we know is really a 19th century version of the church. Is that correct?
That's absolutely right. So the spire that was lost yesterday was a 19th century restoration by the very well-known French architect Eugène Emmanuel Viollet-le-Duc. So it had significance as a 19th century restoration. Of course, much of the rest of the fabric is 19th century and evolved over the course of time. The beautiful thing about a building is that it's a living thing. So we're not looking at something that was built and left alone for centuries, but something that evolved, as you say, over the course of time. So the question will be, philosophically, how much of the later changes should be preserved, and to what extent what we now understand to have been the original appearance of the building be reconstructed. I was very encouraged by President Macron's statement yesterday that they're going to rebuild together, so as a kind of project of unity around this very important monument.
And then, as someone who is a professor of art history, we should not mourn then the particular loss of this version of the cathedral overmuch. We should look forward to the version that will be reborn, correct?
Of course, I mourn the loss of that beautiful wood fabric that was supporting the roof. However, because it was conceived of as somewhat independent from the stone structure, that is really largely intact. I mean, there have been some losses to the vaulting and under the crossing where the tower was and a couple other locations, but generally it survives. And and that's the most important object that Notre Dame has, is its structure.
And the rose windows miraculously seem to have survived, which is so exciting. Now, if they were to sort of brick by brick and piece by piece reconstruct Notre Dame as it stood 2 days ago, do they even have specific architectural plans and renderings that would allow them to do so?
Well, there's plenty of evidence for what the structure looked like 2 days ago. The question will be whether that's the blueprint or whether there's another blueprint.
Right. So when you hear these stories of all of these, families and companies pouring in donations, hundreds of millions of dollars already dedicated to the reconstruction, will that be enough? I mean, as an art historian, when you look at this priceless treasure, can it be reconstructed with anything less than a fortune?
Well, as you know, building budgets are never enough, right? They always go over. But, I think it's an open question, how much it would cost. Obviously, it's an enormous undertaking. And, that'll have to be determined by the estimators down the road.
It sounds like the city and the country and the world are up for it, though. It sounds like as if people are jumping on board to help. Well, Kevin Murphy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.